Hi, Deacon Ed McCormick here, and it's the end of Advent. We're almost ready for Christmas, and I want to share with you a three-part video that has emerged for me out of the Advent season and out of some comments that I've received from some posts. And the topic I want to focus on, inspired by the season and by these comments, is the gospel and politics, and what's the relationship between the two. Recently, I had posted on Facebook some comments about President Trump, and I received feedback from people saying you should just proclaim Christ, don't speak about politics. And the assumption here behind that comment was that somehow Christ and politics should not at all connect, that somehow the gospel and the political and economic and social worlds should not be meshed. Now, if a person is talking about a political party or a particular candidate, I agree that the church should not support a particular candidate or particular party. It shouldn't be partisan. But whether or not the gospel and our Christian faith and the political and social and economic worlds have something to say to each other, that's a whole nother conversation. And I think there is a piety out there that wants to reduce the gospel, wants to shrink the gospel to life after death. That if I pay, pray, and obey, that I will be given the reward of going to heaven when I die. And people think that's what our faith is about, and therefore it shouldn't have anything to say to our present world and our present political and economic and social situation. For others, the Christian life is about the spiritual life, and the spiritual life is a private, interior thing. And again, it doesn't have to do with my relationships with our political or social world. And I want to push back on those assumptions. I want to suggest that the gospel and the Christian life is about much more than getting into heaven when you die. It certainly includes that, but it's about so much more. If you read the Gospels and read St. Paul, it becomes clear that our Christian faith is about much more than getting into heaven when you die. And it is about much more than some private, personal, spiritual experience. And the entirety of our Christian spiritual tradition would agree with me on this. So what I want to do is offer a set of videos that will, I hope, expand your imagination about what the Christian life is about, what the gospel is about, and its relationship, its appropriate relationship to politics and society and culture. And let me just start out, since it is the Advent season, by looking at three readings we heard these Sundays during Advent from the prophet Isaiah. And you will see that Isaiah has a lot to say about the political and social world. And the church has us every Advent read and listen to the prophet Isaiah because he provides much of the context within which we can understand Jesus, his ministry, the gospel, and our Christian faith. And I'm convinced without really locating the gospel and our faith in Jesus within the writings of Isaiah, we don't understand him. And Isaiah writes these incredible poems, and they are filled with expressions of Israel's hope and the promises of God. So let's just take three of these poems that we've heard this Advent season, and see what Isaiah has to tell us. Here's the first one. It comes from chapter 2 of Isaiah, verses 1 to 5. And Isaiah says to us, in the days to come, the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established as the highest mountain, raised above all the hills. He's talking here about Jerusalem. All the nations will stream toward it. Many people shall come and say, Come, let us climb the Lord's mountain. Let us go to the house of the God of Jacob, that he may instruct us in his ways, and we may walk in his paths. For from Zion shall go forth instruction, the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. And he shall judge between the nations and impose terms on many peoples. They shall beat their swords into plowshares, their spears into pruning hooks, and one nation shall not raise a sword against another, nor shall they train for war again. O Jacob, O house of Jacob, come, let us walk in the light of the Lord. Now, I encourage you to read this passage over. It's stunning. It's this vision that in the future, one day, all the Gentile nations will stream towards the mountain of Jerusalem, where the temple is. And with the Jewish people, all the nations will come together. And when this happens, a new age will dawn, an age of peace, an age of justice, this age of shalom. And in this age, there'll be no more war, there'll be no more violence, and God will be the judge of all people. God will be the judge of the nations. So you can see right away for Isaiah, he has a social and political vision of the future. This is the hope that he offers Israel. It's the promise that God makes to God's people. Here's the second reading. It's from Isaiah chapter 11. On that day, a shoot will sprout from the stump of Jesse, and from his roots a bud shall blossom. Now, Jesse was David's father, and the stump of Jesse is Isaiah's image of the monarchy of Israel that's been cut down. And he thinks one day in the future, a new sprout, a new leader will grow from the dead monarchy of Israel. The Spirit of the Lord shall rest upon him, a spirit of wisdom and understanding, counsel and strength, knowledge and fear of the Lord. He will not judge by appearance, nor by hearsay. He will judge the poor with justice, decide a right for the afflicted. He will strike the ruthless with the rod of his mouth. With the breath of his lips he will slay the wicked. Justice shall be a band around his waist, faithfulness a belt around his hips. So it's this extraordinary vision that one day in the future, God will raise up a new king, and this king will judge with justice. He will be filled with God's spirit of wisdom and understanding. And when this happens, Isaiah says the following will then happen. The wolf will be the guest of the lamb. The leopard shall lie down with the kid. The calf and young lion will browse together, a little child to guide them. The cow and bear will be neighbors. The baby will play in the cobra's den. There shall be no harm or ruin on my holy mountain, for the earth shall be filled with knowledge of the Lord as water covers the sea. So you see, when God raises up God's king, and that king is filled with a spirit of wisdom and knowledge of the Lord and justice, even the predators and the vulnerable will live in peace. Not only will there be peace among humanity, but Isaiah envisions a day in which there'll be peace throughout all of God's creation. This will be a future age of justice and shalom, where all who are opposed to each other will be reconciled. And here's the third passage from Isaiah 35. The desert and the parched land will exult. The steppe will rejoice and bloom. It will bloom with abundant flowers. The strength and the hands of the feeble will be strengthened. The knees of the weak will be made firm. Those who have frightened hearts will be given courage. They'll be strong, they'll fear not. Here comes your God. He comes with vindication. He comes to save you. And then the eyes of the blind will be opened. The ears of the deaf will be cleared. Then the lame will leap like a stag. The tongue of the mute will sing. Those whom the Lord has ransomed will return and enter Zion, singing, crowned with everlasting joy. So the poem is again another vision of the future where God promises to lead Israel out of exile back to Jerusalem. And when they return, the nation of Israel will receive healing. The weak will be made strong. The sick will be restored, the blind, the lame, the mute will be healed. It's this vision of the renewal and transformation of all people as God brings them out of exile and back to Jerusalem. And so, in conclusion, I hope you see with these prophetic passages that the prophet doesn't separate the spiritual and the physical. He doesn't separate the needs of the nation and God's action. He sees that the spiritual life is God acting through the nation, raising up a new leader, bringing justice and peace for an age to come. And Jesus believed that he was called to fulfill these very hopes. And so the next video, we're going to talk about the relationship between the gospel and politics concerning Jesus and St. Paul. See you then.